Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today I'm going to be painting Hands of Hope, and I'm going to be sipping on some vanilla chai tea. And if you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel, and that you also check out my Patreon page where you're going to find additional painting perks. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for the materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. My colors are titanium white, Mars black, burnt umber, which I like to call brown, cobalt blue, and deep yellow. And of course you can switch up those colors if you'd like, but that's what I'll be using. For my tools today, I have a white piece of chalk that I'll be using for some drawing. And then I have 3 brushes. I have a 1/2 inch wide flat bristle brush, I have a number 10 round synthetic brush, and I have a number 2 round synthetic brush. And I will refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process. Of course, you can switch those up as well if you'd like. If you're painting along with me, you'll probably want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, in the video description, I will be providing you with a few additional resources that can help you throughout your painting process. One of them is a link where you can purchase the same paint kit that I'm using, from the same type of canvas to paints and brushes, and even the piece of chalk will be in there. So that's there. There's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what we're going to do for the first step is we're going to be painting the background. I'm going to be using my large brush. The colors I'm using are black, brown, and white. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-mix myself a medium, neutral, natural kind of gray color, and we will do the majority of the background with that color. We'll make it a little bit lighter at the top and a little bit darker at the bottom. So I have already pre-mixed my gray color, but I'll show you how I got there. So this is the color that I'm headed for. If you got the kit from us, you're going to want to separate out some of your black, because we need that for a little bit for later. And during this mixing process, you'll just use a little bit of brown and a little bit of white, so you'll have plenty of that stuff left over. I just wanted to make sure that you separated out a little bit of black. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix a little bit of white and a little bit of brown with some black. So what I'm going to do is I'm in essence making gray with the black and the white, and then I'm turning it into a little bit more of a natural neutral tone by adding the brown into it. And you can make yours as light or as dark as you want. This will be a personal preference on your part. But once you've got the color that you'd like, this is pretty good for me. Once you've got the color that you like, what you're going to do is you're going to use your dirty brush from mixing and add a little bit of white to your brush. So you've got your gray plus white on your brush. Start at the top of your canvas doing a left to right type of brush stroke. And I'm going to be bringing this down quite a bit before I start picking up my pre-mixed gray. So I'm going to start with this white and the gray on my brush in order to get this top portion pretty light. And then the next time I go to pick up paint, I'm going to be using my dirty brush and I'm going to pick up my pre-mixed gray. So what this will do is it's going to give myself a nice natural gradient on the canvas. And then I just mix those two areas in together. And you can even go a little crisscross like this and then back and forth, left to right, until you get those two sections nice and blended in together. And then you'll just continue to pick up your gray color until we get down to the bottom of the canvas. So there's no special technique, just kind of going back and forth, left to right to get it on here. Gray is a really good coverage type of color, so you may only need to or want to do one coat on this, but as you go through your own personal process, if you feel like you want to do a second coat, you're more than welcome to do so. It's going to be your judgment call if you want this to be any more blended or lighter or darker or however you want that look to be. But usually gray is pretty good with coverage. And you could also take this color and wrap it around the edges or the sides of the canvas. That'll make it look nice and complete and professional looking and all that good stuff. So I'm nearing the bottom right now. I'm going to start on my next load of my brush. I'm going to pick up gray plus black. So I'm picking up gray plus black on my brush at the same time. And I'm going to cover this entire bottom area with this. And then I just move or blend that color up into the previous section. So you can have it go up as high as you want. You can have it, again, whatever your color preference is totally up to you. I'm just going to wipe my brush off on my paper towel here for a second. And then we are going to be utilizing this same brush, or actually we're going to use our chalk for the next step. So blend this out as much as you want. If you feel that you have to or want to do a second coat, feel free to do so. And then once you've got that to your desired blend, you can put this large brush away, take out your piece of chalk, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be drawing an outline for our hands. I'm going to be using my chalk. I do want to recommend that before you start the step that you make sure that your canvas is dry. So this is that time where you get to take an extra long break if you'd like to. Or you can find some kind of fun fanning method to get it dry, or you can do as I did and just whip out a blow dryer to get it dry that way. So how I'm going to guide you through this step is we're going to start with a basic circle, and then we're going to build stuff off of that. I'll be giving you some markers. We'll connect those markers, and by the time we're done, hopefully we'll have a nice outline that we'll be able to work with during the painting process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first start off by guiding you into a circle that's going to be kind of almost in the middle of our canvas. So if you find about the middle of your canvas, left to right, top to bottom, what I'm going to do is I'm coming over to the left of that about 1 inch, and then I'm going to go up about 1.5 inches. This is going to be my first marker right in through here. My circle that I'm going to be doing is about 5.5 inches wide by tall. So what I'm going to do is from this center, I'm going to go over to the right about 2.5 to 2 3/4 inches over that way, and do the same thing over here. Then I'm going to do the same thing, go straight up, make a marker, and straight down, make yourself a marker in that vicinity somewhere in through here. Then I'm going to connect these four with a circular type of shape. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but I do know that when we make these markers, sometimes we have a tendency to go straight to them. Just make sure as you're doing this that you keep your you keep it in a circular type of shape. So something like this will get me going. And then what I'm going to do from my circle, I'm going to make my wrists, and then we'll build the hands on top of that. So if you come to the top of this circle in through here, go to the right maybe about 1 inch, 1.5 inches, make yourself a marker in through here, and then on the left hand side you're going to come right about to here. So this is this kind of angle diagonally from here, make yourself another marker. You're going to come up to the left hand corner of the canvas, make yourself a marker in through there, and then if this is the center of your canvas top, left to right, you're going to go to the left of that about 1.5 inches, something like that. And then I'm going to connect these markers. So this is in essence going to be where the wrists kind of meet. So this will be my most narrow part. As I go towards these markers, I'm going to bump it out just a little bit. So if I go from here, I'll kind of go in a diagonal way and then maybe just bump it out just a little bit, just so we have a little bit of shape to that arm so it's not just straight. And same thing with here. So I'll go towards that corner up in through here and then just give myself a little bit of a curve. Doesn't have to be much at all. Then I'm going to do a similar motion for my other wrist. So I'm going to come almost straight diagonal from this marker to the center to over here. So somewhere in this vicinity. is where my next marker is going to go. And then over on this left-hand side, I'm right about in through here. That's about where I've got, so almost diagonal from here. So, oh, I didn't even notice that. It's kind of like a crisscross to meet them. So then down on the bottom right-hand corner, I'm going to come up from the bottom right-hand corner about 2 inches, make myself a marker. And then if this is about the center of my canvas left to right, I'm about 3 inches to the right of that. So 3.5 inches to the right of that. So something like that. And then we're going to do something similar to what we did up top. So I'm going to take this marker, I'm going to come in a little bit, and then as I come down, I can give it just, get my hand out of the way here, give it just a little bit of a curve, nothing major, just something like that. And then same thing with this. Just bring it in a little bit, and then as I'm coming out here, a little bit of a bend. So that gives you a little bit of a forearm. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the hand for this bottom arm first. So this is going to be the hand that's on the outside. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, let's see if I can give my hand in the position. I'm going to make my thumb, my curved thumb right here first. So right where these two meet, I'm going to give myself a little bit of a bump like this to here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this in a curved area down like this, and I'm going to come right about a little bit above that and just give myself a little indent in through there. So this is going to be like this part of the hand going into the wrist. On the left hand side, I've got to give myself my pointer finger and the bumps for my knuckles in through here. So I need to connect my thumb to this pointer finger. So what I'm going to do is from this marker here, I'm going to bring it down a little bit and curve it up like this, cross it over my circle to meet the edge of this wrist up and through here, and then bring it back down and curve it into here where I'll meet that circle area. Then along this side, I'm just going to give myself a couple of little bumps. So again, this is just going to be the outside knuckle part. So I'm going to take it and go 1 bump, and these are just little bumps, 2 bump, and then maybe a 3rd bump in through there. So just little bumps going along there. That's all I'm going to do for the outside hand. So in order for us to not get confused with the lines, what I'm going to do now that I have this one done, I'm actually going to take my brush and put a little bit of water on it and erase some of these chalk marks. So that way I will have a clear picture as to this outside hand in through here. So just taking and erasing some of the interior lines of this. I think I want to leave this circle in through here for the makings of the outside hand. So I just erased a couple of those lines. We'll erase more in a minute, but now what I'm going to do is the hand for this upper wrist. So this is going to be kind of holding it like this. So we're going to see fingertips, and we're also going to see the thumb. So I'm going to do my thumb first. So I'm going to start right where these two, the circle meets this other thumb in through here. This is going to be where that starts. And I'm going to bring it down, I would say about 2 inches down in through here. So something like that. And just give yourself a nice kind of gentle curve. Now this is, the side of a hand, so it doesn't have to be a perfect curve. It can have a little bit of bumps and stuff to it. There's also going to be a little piece of the pointer that I'm going to see over here. So I'm just making myself a little diagonal type of mark in through there. I'm going to make myself the end of my thumb. So I'm going to just bring this in a little bit like this, almost halfway into the wrist, and then just bring a curved line up like that. Then I'm going to put my other fingers over on this side over here. So I'm going to see the tip to all 4 of the fingers. I'm going to have my pointer, which is coming from here. It's going to be on the other side of the wrist. It's going to come right about down and in through here. So I am probably about 3 inches up from the bottom of my canvas where I'm going to stick my pointer in through here. And then I'm going to come up maybe another 1.5 inches. I'm going to give myself this little bit of a curved line like this, and then just give myself the end of my finger like that. I've got my next 3 fingers, so it's going to be my middle finger, my ring finger, and my pinky. So my middle finger is the one that I'm going to see the most of, and that's going to be right above here. So I'm going to take from right here, and I'm going to bring it out just a little bit farther than here. I'm going to bring it up in a little bit of a curved manner, so I have almost like the outside knuckles, 1 knuckle, 2 knuckles, and then I'm going to bring a little bit of a bump in through here. So to give you a little marker, this is almost an inch away from here, and almost an inch away from here is where the tip of that is. Now I can just put the other 2 tips on. So I'm going to start a little bit down from this knuckle here and just give myself a little bit of a curve like this. I'm going to cross or just bring it right to the bottom of my circle in through here and give myself, oh, that's a little wide, bring myself in through here. So this will be the second finger, and then I'll have my little pinky finger, again start just a little bit down from that knuckle, bring it out just a little bit, and then I'm going to bring this, cross this over into my circle just a little bit. So something like that. Now I'm going to take my paintbrush, my medium paintbrush, and put a tiny bit of water on it and erase the lines that I don't need. So I don't need this one in through here. I don't need this one or this one. And again, I'm just erasing this with a little bit of water. This little one up in through here can be erased. I can erase this one right here. This is going to make our painting process easier in a minute. I can erase this one. I can erase this one. And then I can erase this is the circle piece that we had initially. That can be erased. My center dot can be erased. And then this one up here can be erased. Let me just give it a quick look over, make sure that I've erased all of my lines. This can be erased. Yeah, we already did that. That's looking pretty good. So this is going to be the outline. If you need to do any adjusting, feel free to do so. We are going to be using this medium brush for the next step, so you can just get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint the base coat for the hands. I'm going to be using my medium brush. The colors that I'm going to use are brown, black, and white. And what I'm in essence doing is I'm going to be making myself a different shade of gray. This one's going to be a little bit more on the brownish side. So what I've done, pre-mixed it of course, so you can see where I'm headed. This is where I'm headed in through here. So this was my gray for my background. I had a little bit left over. If you don't have any left over, that's totally fine. You can mix this color regardless. I'm using black, white, and brown. If you have some of your gray left over, all you need to do is add a touch of black, a little bit of brown, and a little bit of white into it. And just make it a different tone. Make it a little bit more warm with the added brown into it. You want it to be visibly different, so that way when you go to paint the base coat of the arms, you'll have that different look to it, and you'll be able to see the difference between the arm versus your background. So that's looking pretty good to me. So once you've got the color that you would like, you're just going to be painting these all of the arms in, but you're going to leave a little bit of your chalk mark showing so you don't lose that outline. So I've got my brown or my brownish gray on my brush, and I'm just going to kind of slow down around these areas where I definitely want to make sure I don't lose the information of that outline. If you lose a little bit, that's okay. You can, on the exterior edges, you could certainly bring that all the way to your chalk mark as it's meeting your background gray, but where it meets another part of the skin, you'll want to keep some of that outline, the chalk mark outline, so when you go to paint in a little while, we'll have an easier time figuring out where each individual piece is. So you don't have to leave a lot, just something that is again going to give you the ability to make those decisions when we're painting it in a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and come over on this side, and you can do this in any order, whatever works best for you to get these parts colored in. I'm trying to do a nice pretty solid coat. I know that the color combination that we're using covers pretty well, plus we've got a nice complementary color behind it, which is that background, so it will work out just fine. This is a little sliver of a piece of skin in through there, And then just making sure I'm going a little bit slower on these or on the finger areas, just so again I can leave a little bit in through there. When I get to the forearms or the wrists, I'll go a little bit faster through those parts. But it's, you know, because we did spend a good amount of time on the outline, you don't want to, you know, go too quickly and lose that hard work that you did. And that's one of the things with doing a piece of the body like this, that, you know, we plan it out so well, and then during the painting process, if we have a good plan in place, the painting process will be a little bit easier for us. So that's why I you know, just make sure that I've got all my parts visible and I can not get confused. So just leaving those little bit of outlines. And if you, you know, for some reason do cover up some of your outlines, it's okay. You'll be able to work your way back through them, you know, during the painting process, just doing it a little bit on a slower pace. And then once I've got all the areas around my fingers and left enough of my chalk mark to guide me through the other steps, then I can just kind of whiz right through the forearms and stuff like that. So I've got that part done, and now I can just kind of go pretty darn fast in through here. I suppose you could even use your big brush for these for the forearm parts, just whatever works for you to get them colored in. And then I'm again just going to bring it all the way to the edge of my chalk mark if you want to. I mean, you can certainly reshape it during this process. The chalk is so easy to erase. So if you're going through this and you're like, oh, I want that arm to be shaped a little bit differently, you can certainly reshape it. And then if you have some of that pencil or the chalk still showing, you can just erase it with a little bit of water. You saw how simple that was to do. And then I'll go ahead and do this top portion. And again, just gonna bring it all the way to my chalk. And you may notice, depending on what type of paint you are using, because the background is lighter up on the top portion than the bottom portion, as this paint dries, as this coat of the base coat for the skin dries, you might find that this upper portion ends up being lighter than the bottom portion, and that would be because of the base color that's underneath. So if that happens to you, don't be alarmed. It was intentional, and it will work out because it'll only make the top portion of your skin look a little bit lighter, as if it is in the light itself. So if that happens, great, just roll with it. That'll be a great added piece to the puzzle. And then once you've got this all painted in, just make sure you have a nice good coat and that you've got all the areas painted as much as you want. We are going to be using our large paintbrush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put the medium brush away, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to put the shadows on our forearms. So I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. Again, I do recommend that your canvas is dry before you start the step. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using black plus my skin color, or that tannish gray that we used. So I'm going to be having my shadows on the left, my biggest shadows on the left-hand side of these forearms, but I'm also going to have a little bit on the right, which is going to indicate the contour of the arm and how it's round. So we'll have a bigger one on the left and then a little one on the right, so we can give some form to the arm. So the colors I think I said I was going to use are black and my my skin color. So I'm going to start with a little bit of black on my brush. I'm going to start with this upper arm. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of outline the edge and then just kind of rub this black into the arm a little bit. So I'm going to start over here, and I'm just going to kind of outline the edge of the arm, something like this. And then while I still have it on my brush and it's kind of on the wetter side, I can start to just kind of rub it into that neighboring skin color. So this is going to provide me almost like a dry brush type of blend into it. I am going to put a little bit in through here as it is meeting the hand in through here. And my whole goal for this is to make it look natural. So that's why I like to use these bristle brushes, because I can get a dry brush type of blend without overdoing that shadow. So I'm going to wipe my brush off on my paper towel right now to make sure I don't have too much black on my brush, and I'm going to start blending this into that skin color a little bit more. So I hardly have any paint on my brush, and I'm really lightly touching my canvas. I'm not touching my canvas very hard at all. And this is how we're going to get that roundness to the arm. So that's where I'm going to start with this right hand, or the top arm on the left hand side. I'm going to do the same thing down below. Before we get into the right side, I want to tackle the left side of these. So we're going to have the most black on our brush for these left sides. So I'm going to do the same thing down here. This is a little bit shorter of a distance, and my darkest area is going to be down at the bottom. So that's where I'm going to kind of start in through here. So I'm going to give myself this pretty dark area right along the edge. I also want there to be some in through here, and this finger is going to be pushing a little shadow in through there as well. So just using the tip of my brush, kind of rubbing it right into here. This finger is going to have a little bit, or make a little bit of shadow on the skin as well. So again, I've got very little bit of paint on my brush. I'm just almost pushing it into that little finger area to give it that that depth in through there, and then I can take it and start to rub it out into my the rest of the arm in through here. So I'm just taking it and just kind of dry brush rubbing it in through here. And then once I've got that on there, you may find that during this process, if it doesn't blend out as much as you want it to, you can certainly pick up some of your arm color. So I just picked up a little bit of my arm color so you can see how this would work. I have that plus the remnants of the black on my brush right now, and you can just get them to intermingle with one another in that fashion. So sometimes during these blending processes, if it doesn't work out exactly how you had anticipated, you can certainly just pick up that original color. And now I'm just kind of rubbing this in to make sure that they blend pretty well with one another. I know on this arm I will also be having some of the muscles and stuff. I'll have that on the top too, but if you have remnants on your brush that you can start the process of, say, the dip of a muscle, you can certainly do that in this step. I am going to wash my brush because this isn't blended well enough to me, and I have too much black on my brush, so I'm washing my brush right now. I'm going to pick back up some of my skin tone, so this way I can get this to blend a little bit better. That will make my eye happy. So I know that during these skin making processes that I like to control the situation. So if I get to a point where I'm like, that wasn't quite as I had anticipated, I stop, I take a breath, and I just make sure that it works out the way that I want. So that's a better blend to me. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit a little bit of a shadow on these outside edges of the forearm. So this time, I'm going to first wash and dry my brush, make sure I don't have any of my skin color on there. So I wash and dry my brush. This time what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of black on the edge of my brush, and I'm also going to pick up a tiny bit of water. So I dip my brush in my water, and then I tap it off on my paper towel. So what this did is it puts moisture within my bristles. So when I go to do this other shadow, I'm going to have a more of a smooth line, and it'll probably be more narrow, but I'll still be able to blend it out. So just making sure I don't have too much water on my brush. You can always add more, but it's tough to take away. So I just want to start slowly, and I'm going to start right at the edge of this arm in through here, and you can see I'm getting a nice little dark edge to it, and it just naturally blended right in with the neighboring skin. I'm going to do the same thing down here. I don't think I need to even reload my brush. I think I've got enough moisture and enough of the black on there for me to work it out down in through here. And I'm pushing it towards the edge of the arm as opposed to coming in from a different angle. So I'm positioned at a good spot to just kind of push this towards the edge of the arm, which gives me a nice little natural gradient. And then to tidy it up, I can just wipe my brush off on my paper towel and just kind of rub it just a little bit more if I want to. And then we are going to be using this same brush for the next step. So once you've got your shadows on your forearms, you can wash and dry this big brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're gonna be adding the highlights to our forearms. I'm gonna be using my large bristle brush. The colors I'm gonna use are my skin tone and white. And what I'm in essence gonna be doing is I'm going to be adding the form to these parts of the body. So this will show the muscles, it'll show the intensity of how that wrist might be twisted, and it'll give a lot of information. The lighter the areas the lighter the color I go, the more vibrant the color will be later. So if you want your yellow to be really yellow or your blue to be really vibrant blue, you'll want to bring these highlights into a very light, almost white kind of area. So you'll see how I'm going to do mine. I am going to do it a progression from dark to light, allowing for the muscles to kind of appear. I'm going to enhance this area down here a bit and to give these forearms a lot of form. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to make myself a lighter version than my skin tone. So this is my skin tone that I had. What I've done is I've made a lighter version. So I took this and I added a little bit of white paint to it. I don't need it to be a ton lighter, but I definitely need it to be enough so you'll be able to visibly see a difference. I will be using white in a little bit to enhance my highlight, but right now I want to gradually make my way towards that light part. So in order to control myself and to make sure I don't have too much paint on my brush, what I'm doing is I wipe my brush off on my paper towel. I'm going to kind of plan it out. I definitely want this center area to be pretty darn light, probably even the lightest up here and maybe very light in through here. Thinking of my own forearm where you have maybe some little muscles in through here. Well, my muscles are little. Maybe this person has bigger muscles than I do, but I'm definitely going to have it nice and light up in through here. So I've got my highlight color and I'm just kind of planning it out where I want it to go. Definitely bringing a lot over towards the edge in through here. If I want a muscle to appear or the indent of one, I can leave some of that area a bit darker. So that's an easy way to kind of show the form of something, is kind of leaving some of that area on the darker side. And I'm not using a lot of paint and I'm just kind of rubbing it in at this point. I'm going to be working my way towards the light. So this right now is just kind of breaking me in and getting my my highlight area to emerge. When I get over to here, I don't want it to just go from my highlight to my dark area. So I want to make sure that this transition works. So with my dirty brush, I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of my skin color as well. So as I'm working my way from the light to the dark, I can transition that area. And again, if you have too much paint on your brush, just wipe it off on your paper towel. I'm using this dry brush type of technique to get these colors to just overlap one another and really look like they are working together. It doesn't have to be smooth like a photograph. This is just a nice loose interpretation and hopefully we'll get some good shape within it. So now that I've got that started up top, I'm going to let it rest for a minute, and while it's resting, I'm going to go do the same process down on the bottom forearm. So again, I'm just going to pick up my light highlight color, put a little bit on my brush. I don't need a lot. I'm going to think about where I want the area to be the lightest. So I definitely want this area right underneath this hand to be pretty darn light, and I want some of this muscle in through here to be pretty light, and definitely over here on the right hand side. So again, I want it to look like it's kind of popping out the most in through here, like it would, the forearm to me would in this type of situation. So I'm just bringing this highlighted color in through here, rubbing it out towards that edge, rubbing it down towards the bottom, leaving some darker areas like in through here. I'll leave a little bit darker, so that's gonna make it look like maybe that's dipping in a bit for a muscle, and just kind of rubbing this out in through here. So now I'm feeling like I'm pretty well blended, but I'm gonna now pick up some of my skin tone on my dirty brush and get these to blend in even more in this area in through here. And again, you don't need a lot of paint on your brush. I feel like I have a little bit too much, so I just wiped it off on my paper towel, and then I'm gonna bring this and overlap it a little bit into my darker area. And if you ever do anything where you're like, wow, that was too much, I didn't expect it to be that much, just let it dry for a minute, and then you can bring back some of that original skin tone. But again, we're gonna be adding, I'm gonna be adding another little layer to this in a minute. So I'm just gonna let this dry for a second while I go back up top to enhance this one up top just a little bit more. Let me just bring this in towards this finger just a little bit more. And I'm hardly any paint on my brush, just allowing it to blend in and give myself that bit of a gradient. So up here, it's pretty dry. If yours is still too wet, I would wait just a minute. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pick up some of that highlight plus a little bit of white. So just a teeny tiny bit of my highlight and a teeny tiny bit of white. So I want to put a couple of even brighter areas on here, but I don't want to overdo it. So a little bit of my highlighted color plus white, and I definitely want a little bit more brightness up in through here. And less is more. You don't need a ton. Again, I want to kind of keep maybe a little bit of muscle in through there. Because I hardly have any paint on my brush, it's allowing me to just kind of scrub in these little areas of highlight. So again, I want a little bit more over on this side in through here. So just tiny bit of paint on my brush. This bristle brush is great for these type of steps because it keeps that paint moving as it's drying. So you don't necessarily need to scrub it too hard, but enough to allow for yourself to move that paint around. And again, if you do something you're like, yeah, that's too much, just bring back some of that background color. Like I feel like that might be a little too white, but I'm gonna actually add a little bit more white up in through here, so that might balance it good enough for me. And then you always want to just kind of sit back, let it dry for a minute, and if there's any areas that you feel need to be brighter or darker or need more movement in them or more information as far as the muscular aspect of it or the form goes, feel free to. I just want to put my head back here for a second. I think I want to finesse this area just a little bit more, but you can feel free to just kind of keep tweaking it with your light spots and your dark spots. I feel like this is the wrist, and through here I need to just kind of make it look like it is the structure of the wrist. So anatomy is going to play a good part in this if you want it to look realistic. So that's where, refer to your own body when it comes to adding these highlights and shadows. I often take pictures of my own body parts in order to understand what's happening with these kind of elements to it. And then I'm going to go down to the bottom and do the same thing on the bottom arm. So I'm using my highlight color plus a tiny bit of white paint, and again, hardly any paint on my brush. Gonna just elevate some of these areas a little bit more, because I know that when I go to put that we're going to be putting like a glaze on it later that's going to show the colors on top of this. So I know that this is going to be important to have some of these areas pretty darn light. So again, just kind of thinking about where those muscles, those forearm muscles would be. Maybe there's a lighter or a more prominent one down in through here, and just getting these all to connect. And then you just kind of keep fiddling with it as much as you want to. I think I'm gonna just make this merge a little bit more. I'm going back into my original skin color just to get these to make sure that they look like they belong a little bit more together. And then I would, again, just let it dry for a couple minutes, see if I need to do any further tweaking. And then we are going to be using our, we're going to use our small brush. No, we're going to use our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got your highlights and your shadows all set on your arms, you can put this large brush away. Take out your medium, I'm just going to keep fiddling with mine. Take out your medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to put the shadows on our hands. I'm going to be using my medium brush. I'm going to be using black and my skin tone. Very similar to how we did the forearms, only this is a smaller area, so I'm going to use a smaller brush to do it. You can also, if you want to or need to, you could use an even smaller brush. But what I'm going to, in essence, be doing is giving myself my shadows on this left-hand side of each one of these sets of hands. And I'm going to put little shadows in between my fingers as well. I'll do the same thing over here on the right side. I'll be putting some shadows over on the right side, this little piece in through here, and then wherever else I feel that I need shadows to speak to the contour of the hands. So I'm never going to have a ton of paint on my brush. I will a lot of time also have a touch of water on my brush, which is going to allow me to have this nice smooth transition from my shadowy area into my skin tone in through here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a tiny bit of black paint on my brush, and you can even spin your brush in your paint to give you a little bit pointier of a tip if you feel the need to do so. And like I did previously, I'm going to dip my brush in my water and then tap it off on my paper towel, so I don't have a lot of paint or a lot of water on my brush, just a little tiny bit. So I'm going to start with this hand in through here. I know that I want a little kind of shadow part for this finger to make it look like it's wrapping around the hand or the wrist. So I'm just going to put a little shadow area in through here to indicate that. I'm also going to put a little tiny shadow on the edge of this finger in through here. I'm going to put a little bit more water on my brush just so I can have it a little bit smoother as I'm wrapping around this area in through here. I'm going to just make sure I have whatever form I want on that finger. So if you want it to bump out a little bit and then just kind of wrap back up, this one's going to kind of come into the hand a little bit. I'm going to wipe my brush off on my paper towel and pick up a bit of my skin tone so I can get these to blend in as much as I want before this dries too much. I'm going to be traveling a little bit slower on these shadows than I did on the forearm, so I want to make sure that I've got them blended kind of as much as I want to during this process, so they don't dry too fast on me and make my process more difficult. So I'm putting a little dent in the top of that finger so it looks like it's a little bit of a knuckle kind of area, and then just kind of blending it out. I'm putting a little shadow in between these fingers and through here, a little tiny bit at the edge of that finger, like that. So where I'm headed now is going to be between these fingers in through here. This one I've got kind of going in this direction. This shadow is going to be more of a downward diagonal. So I'm going to, again, put a little bit of black plus a tiny bit of water on my brush, and I'm going to start over here and bring this kind of down at a little bit of a diagonal. So I can do that to all of them while I'm here. Just kind of put a little bit on my on the end there. I just put a little bit more water on my brush so I can pull it a little bit further, bring it down in this diagonal way. Do the same thing to this one in through here, and then just pull it down in this diagonal way. So make sure you have 4. And then this is the side of the hand in through here. So sometimes when we're doing these things, we tend to count fingers inappropriately. So just make sure that you have the right number of fingers. And then I'm just going to pick up some of my skin tone to make sure that I've got the blend the way that I want. So a little bit of skin tone on my brush is going to allow me to blend those out. And don't worry if it's not perfect at this point. We're going to have the highlights and the little tweaking and stuff to make sure that we've got it the way that we want. And even if you have a little bit of chalk remainder, don't worry about that. So I'm going to do the same thing on these fingers and through here. So just a teeny bit of black plus a little bit of water on my brush. I'm going to again kind of outline this left hand side, and I'll put a lot more shadow down at the bottom. So a little bit on this left hand side in through here, and then what I'll also do is bring it up a little bit in between those fingers. I don't need to bring it up much, but just a little bit. And this is the knuckle area, so you can pull up these little kind of curved lines in through there. That will help to make it look a little bit more natural. I'm going to do the same thing down in through here. Bring this shadow down here, bring it up a little bit in near that neighboring finger, and then almost bring up these little kind of curved type of lines that are going to insinuate that there's a little bit of the knuckle in through there. You can even just bring it a little bit like that, and then I'll go ahead and do my next one. So I'm starting that shadow pretty much where one finger ends is where I start the shadow for the next finger, and then just kind of bring it around this side over in through here, and then bring it, I've got a shadow kind of on the side of the arm like this. I'm going to pick up some of my skin tone right now just to make sure that I've got this. I want little shadows coming on the underside of here, but I want it to make sure it blends in with my skin tone. And then I've got my knuckle in through here. So I'm using right now a combination of my skin tone plus black on my brush, so I can have this in through here. And again, if you feel like you need to change to your small brush during this process, feel free to do so. I'm going to go down to the little pinky finger now. So I just reloaded my brush with black paint. Going to bring it down along this edge in through here, and then just make sure that I've got the shape that I want. And of course you can redo that shape. And then I'm going to put a little bit of water on my brush just to make sure that I've got this blended out. And again, you could use water, or you could use the your skin color. So any combination thereof that's going to allow you to give the blending, get the blending that you need. And we're going to put fingernails on and stuff in a little bit, but this is just getting us started with this, with the dark shadowy area on the fingers. I'm also going to put some shadow in between these fingers on the skin. So again, just a little bit of black, touch of water on my brush. I want to put it to make it look like the fingers are really kind of holding on tight to this person who's pulling them up. So I'm going to have more of a shadow kind of on the bottom side of that finger on the skin, and then I can just get it to blend out into that skin a little bit. I'm going to put it nice and deep in through here, maybe pull it in between these fingers just a little bit. And I'm just using the tip of my brush. And again, if this brush is too big for your process, you can certainly switch to a smaller brush. It's going to be wherever your control is on your part. And then I'll put a little bit in through this tip in through here. And again, I'm just going for a nice look to make it look like he's really, holding on tight. I'm going to pick up some of my skin tone now just to make sure that this blends in with the skin tone. And I don't know if you guys see this a lot, but I am constantly wiping my brush off on my paper towel to control the amount of paint that I have on my canvas, or on my brush. That's one of the biggest keys, is to knowing how much paint you need on your brush, and the pressure that you need and all that good stuff is what makes for the control of these blends and giving this information that you want. So I'm going to move on to I need to put a little shadow on right hand side of this hand. So again, just loaded my brush with a little bit of black. I don't necessarily want a big shadow up in through here because this is the top of the hand, but I definitely want a little shadow over here where this thumb wraps around and is going on the other side of the other person's wrist. So somewhere in through there, I want a little bit of a shadow over here on this right hand side, so something like this, and then I'll start pulling it into this whole right hand side of the hand, so like this, and then just kind of getting it to blend into the neighboring skin. So I'm going to bring it down this little wrist area as well, and then I'm going to pick up some of my skin color. So if you have a ton of black on your brush, just wipe it off and then pick up some of your skin tone and get these two to blend in together. I'm going to put maybe a little bit of a shadow between this thumb and here. Not a lot, but I'll put a little bit in through there to tell the same story that was happening here, that this thumb is really holding on tight. But first I'm going to get this to just make sure that it blends out. And when you're using water on your brush like I am, or a liquid medium, the paint will tend to look a little bit lighter when it's wet. So as you're going through this process, if you're going about it and your paint, you can see that looks lighter than that, is looking too light for you, just let it dry for a minute. That's going to give you the true color of it, because sometimes when we're doing this, we're relying upon that color as it's wet, and sometimes that's not the right color because it's going to shift when it dries. I'm going to just use the remnants on my brush to maybe put a little bit up in through here. That works out for me, making sure that I've got all that I want over here. And I'm going to put that tiny shadow right in through here. So just a little bit of black on my brush. I think I'm going to switch to my small brush right now. I have a couple of little tiny areas over here. I'm switching to my small brush so I can control myself in these little tiny areas right in through here. So I have my small brush and just going to give myself a little bit of a shadow in through here, making sure that I've got it blended out. And then I can almost just ride this thumb down along the edge. Put a little bit more black, maybe a little bit of water on my brush to give myself this shadow that's going to be on the cast upon the arm itself. So I'm just taking my watered down black paint, giving myself a little shadow on this arm of the thumb. So even though the arm is nice and bright from whatever the light is, I still can have that deep shadow that's cast upon it from that thumb. So I'm just going with a nice darkness here on this little piece of a finger. This is the other side of your pointer, so I'm just going to give it a little tiny contour shadow along the side over there. Just a little bit. Then I'm going to go ahead and do the shadow on the right side of this thumb. So again, I just have my watered down black on my brush right now, and just giving myself a little bit of a shadow over here on this right hand side. This is where I can get rid of some of my chalk mark if I have any of that left over, and then just rub it out into my hand. This is going to be the knuckle on my thumb. We've got more details on the fingers themselves with the fingernails and stuff too. So right now, just kind of getting all the little shadows and stuff in. I think I want another little tiny one up in through here. So this will be this hand casting a shadow right on the wrist of this one over in through here. So I think that's looking pretty good. And fiddle with yours as much as you want to. If you feel that you need to reshape any of your fingers, feel free to do so. We are going to be using our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put whatever brush you're using away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. Alright, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're adding the highlights to our hands. Again, we'll be doing small details on the fingernails and fingertips in the next step, but right now we're just going to be finishing the form of these hands, making sure we've got the, you know, the finger, I think they're called tendons, whatever these are called, the finger form areas in through here. Make sure those are popping out a little bit. Make sure the hand up in through here is popping out, and make sure that it blends into the forearm the way that we want. So I will be using my skin tone plus my light highlight tan color that we made, or light gray that we made, plus white. And if I need to go into any other colors, I'll let you know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my light highlight gray that we made when we were doing the forearms. And what I'm going to do is kind of designate where I want these light areas to go. Again, don't need a lot of paint on my brush, just going to wipe it off on my paper towel. I do want this little area in between these two fingers to be evident, so I'm going to give myself a little bit of a highlight in through here. This will kind of shape the thumb nicely for us and give us this bit of a area that looks good. Sticks out a bit, I guess is the right word for that. I'm going to also give myself some highlight on top of this, the thumb in through here. So wherever you want that thumb to pop out the most, you're going to put a little bit of a highlight there. I feel like my knuckle area, this knuckle would be right about here. So I'm going to put a light spot in through there and then just kind of get it to blend out. And you can certainly make it look like there's some little wrinkles by just pulling it left to right. I'm going to also just kind of rub in a little bit of a highlight in through here. I'm going to pick up some of my light tan plus some of my skin color right now. So it's not as light as that, but it's a little bit lighter than my skin tone. So I have my skin tone plus the highlight color on my brush right now. This is going to give me kind of a mid-tone highlight, and just going to work this out over in through here to bring myself up to the top in through here, make it a little bit darker there just so it dips in a little bit. So all these nuances of the tonal values are allowing me to form the hand. So it pops out here and it gives it all of that information that we're looking for. While I have the remnants on my brush, this is a great time to come in with a little bit of a highlight to show the areas in that connect to your fingers. So just a little bit of the remnants on my brush, just kind of rubbing it in. You can also put little areas that are going to make it look like there's muscles in the hands. I do need this to translate this wrist as a similar color into here. So I'm going to pick up some of my highlight color and make sure that I've got the information that I want in this area to make sure that it speaks to the same almost tonal value as what is happening underneath that thumb. So I'm just going to kind of lightly rub this in, wiping my brush off a lot to make sure that I've got my blend going the way that I want, and then just kind of rubbing this out, make sure it blends up and out the way that I want it to. And again, if I go too light or too dark, you can always adjust. I just added a touch of water to my brush to get this to blend out in through here, soften up that paint a little bit. The water will help to keep that paint alive and open for a little bit longer if you needed to. Just add a little tiny touch to your brush, a touch of water, and that will allow it to open up just a little bit and keep that paint moist and moving for a little bit longer, making sure that these blend the way that I want them. I can certainly have a dip in through here, but I want to make sure it's not just one color block line and then the next color. I can just gradually get that to blend in a little bit. That's looking pretty good to me. I'm going to add, just like we did on the forearms, now that I've got my highlights in place and it's telling the story that I want it to tell, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop in add a little bit more brightness to it. So I'm going to switch brushes again. I'm going to go for my small brush for these bright highlights. So I just switched to my small brush, and I'm going to put a little bit of white paint on my brush. I really want to have a nice bright highlight over here on this left-hand side. So I just put a bit of white paint on my brush, and I'm just going to get it to blend into that thumb area a little bit. So this way it's going to really indicate that there's a light source up above, and it's going to give us that extra bit of dimension when we go to put the colored part on in a little bit. I'm washing and drying my brush, picking up a little bit more of my highlight color, that light tan color, and then just making sure that I don't lose any of this information in through here. I think I want to just blend that out just a little bit more. That knuckle can be bright, but I want to make sure that it makes sense, and then maybe a little bit of extra in through here. So now I'm just picking up my my light highlight color, giving myself some extra pop. I'm going to put a little bit of extra whiteness up in through here. So again, when we go to put the colors on in a little while, this is a great exercise for utilizing your full value scale from light to dark. This will teach you and give you that opportunity to make sure that you have enough dimension in the painting prior to adding color to it. So it's a great painting to play with those type of tools to learn. I'm thinking that's pretty good. I think I want a little bit more lightness in through here, so just my light tan or my highlighted color plus a bit of white, because again, I want these two to look like they're transitioning from one side of the thumb to the next. So even if you just put a bit of this color up in through here, that brightness, that will connect them. I need to make sure that they're pretty well connected so it doesn't look like two separate body parts. I need to do this hand through here. So I'm going to stick with my small brush. I'm feeling pretty comfortable with it. So I'm going to stick with my small brush to add the highlights on here. So I've got my highlight color. I'm going to go the top side of this thumb in through here. This is where like the knuckle would be. I've got maybe a little bit of extra in through here as if it's this part of the hand, and just kind of get that to blend out. Again, just adding that bit of additional form to the hand. Anywhere that I put this highlight, it's going to make it look like it pops out a little bit. And again, I want to connect this color to up in through here. So just adding that similar lightness to it, and then just getting it to blend out like that. We've got our thumb area in through there. We're going to add a little bit on this fingertip. So I'm just working with the remnants on my brush right now. And again, we'll do the fingernails and stuff in a minute, but this is looking pretty good, making sure that works. And then I'm just going to do my fingertips over here, not the nails and stuff, but the actual skin itself. I just want to make sure that I've got my bit of highlight up on the top where I want it to show. We need a little bit in through here, and then just picking up my the highlight color plus a little bit of my skin color, just to get these to blend out on that side and on this knuckle area. So really what I'm doing is just trying to give myself a bit of a highlight on the tip of that finger. And again, we're going to do the nails in a minute. This is just giving me that the tip of the finger that is being illuminated by whatever the light source is, and then maybe a little bit of extra highlight on this knuckle area in through here, and then same thing down here. And then we're gonna, oh, let me fix this one. This one's not cooperating the way that I want. So just make sure that I've got that blended in with the skin tone. There we go. So that was just a little highlight plus the skin tone. And then I'm gonna pop a little bit of white paint on the tips of these fingers as well. So just a tiny bit of white, not a lot, just a itty bitty bit to give me a little pop of a bright highlight on those fingertips, and then just blend it out so it looks like we've got a rounded tip. And you don't have to do this 100% right now, just getting it started, because we'll be doing, when we do the fingernails, we'll probably hit these again, the tips. I just picked up some more white so I can get this little area a little bit lighter in through here. So again, anywhere that you want to pop out and you feel would be hitting that light a little bit more, you go right ahead and add that highlight. And then we're going to use this small brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can wash and dry this small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish our fingers. So this is basically the fingernails and any of the little areas around it. I'm going to use my small brush. The colors that I'm using are black, white, my skin color and maybe my highlighted skin color, my light gray. So what I'm going to first do is I'm going to use black plus water on my brush, real thinned out. I have a lot of water on my brush. I'm going to just kind of mark out where I want the fingernails to be. So I'm just going to give myself a loose type of shape for them. You could certainly change yours. You could make them look like a woman's hand if you wanted to have more of longer fingernails. You could really make it into whatever way you want. I'm really just outlining the fingernails right now just to give myself the area where I want them to be, and I will put the information on in a minute. This one down here is kind of to the side a little bit. Maybe we'll get this one over in this direction. And again, yeah, so I'm just thinking of what they would in essence look like at the position that they're on. We're going to be doing this one in through here. This is the big thumbnail, like this. And then once I've got them on there, I just need to make some decisions as to where I want the highlights and the shadows. So for me, I'm definitely going to have a little bit of shadow underneath that nail, the top of the nail, and maybe on the side of the nail, the right side of the nail, maybe a little on the left too, depending on the angle that I feel that it's at. But I also need strategic highlights in order to give it that form. And I need to put a little bit of skin, the little skin that pops out underneath the nail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first just kind of tackle my shadowy areas because I have a little bit of black and water on my brush. So I definitely want to make sure that I've got shadows in between my fingers. So again, just watered down black paint. So right in through here, maybe on this right hand side, definitely where that nail meets the top skin. I've got a little bit down on this right hand side of the nail in through here. So really, again, I'm just using a little bit of black plus a touch of water on my brush in order to give myself a bit of a dip in that fingernail towards the bottom side of it where it's nearing the skin area. So I've got a little bit of watered down black on my brush and just kind of keep wiping it off so I can get this to blend into the nail. This one might be darker because it's further down. This one up in through here, I'll put my shadow over on this right side. So I want to try and get my hand out of the way here, but giving my same process that I use to paint. This one I also want to show like the crescent moon thing on his thumb. So I'm going to give a little bit of shadow above that as well, just to give myself the extra added detail of that, and maybe a little bit down at the bottom. So now that I've got my little shadows within the nails and maybe a little bit on the sides of the nails, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my highlighted areas. So I definitely have a little bit of skin highlight, so underneath that fingernail. So I just picked up my light tan, and I'm going to give myself a little bit of a quick highlight underneath here, which is going to give me the piece of skin that meets the nail bed. So this is going to work in this direction. And of course you can put little wrinkles and stuff like that, whatever works for you. And then maybe I've got a little bit of extra highlight over here on the side of the finger in through here, maybe a little bit on the skin part in through here. That's looking pretty good. I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of my original skin color plus black. I want to put a little bit of a shadow underneath the skin part. So just, this is black plus my skin color. And again, I'm just looking to give myself a little bit more form or shape to that skin in itself. So just adding those little nuances of detail is going to make that piece of skin pop out more. I'm going to put a tiny bit of white paint on my brush to give my nails a little bit of highlight now. So I have a little bit of white paint on my brush. I'm going to go top left corner of those nails, something like this, give myself a little bit of a highlight in through there. And you can certainly blend it out as much as you want. This is going to give you that the shiny part of the nail. So this may even cover up some of that left-hand side outline that you did. So when you're doing something like this, even though we did put an outline there, if you felt that the highlight should take up some of that, then feel free to put that in. This one down here, I'm actually going to put the highlight at the top right hand side of it. I'm going to bring some of my light tan into the equation, so maybe my highlight isn't as bright as the ones up here, because again, this one's down in the darkness a little bit more, and I just kind of keep adjusting it until I've got it as dark as I want it. I think I need a little bit more of my regular skin color to just bring it a little bit darker. Yeah, there we go. And you know, that's the beauty of this. You just kind of keep tweaking it until it's in the value that you want. I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of white paint, give myself a little bit more highlight on the tips of these fingers in through here, just to make sure that they are in fact doing everything that I want them to. Maybe a little highlight there, because again, I know when I go to put those colored parts on, that these brighter areas are going to be necessary. So I'm just making sure that I have enough of them in there. I'm going to go ahead and maybe blend this highlight out just a little bit, and then I'll start working on that thumb area. I guess I tackled these fingers first because they were kind of sequential and easier to tackle at once. I just put a little bit more black paint on my brush. I feel like I need a little bit more information at the tip of this finger right in through here. I feel like it is not as much detail as I wanted, so I'm just kind of putting a little bit more in through there. There we go, that looks good. And now I'm going to go ahead and do this one up in through here. So I'm going to pick up my light gray color to start my highlights. So I think I want one on this side of this nail part, and then just blending it out into the tan, maybe a little bit more on the edge of this finger in through here. Give that a little bit of extra highlight, maybe a little bit on the skin part in through here, just so we can make sure that that all makes sense. I think I'm going to reshape the bottom of this too. I'm picking up some tiny bit of black paint. It looks a little full for me, so I'm just going to kind of shave it down just a little bit so we have something that is working with my eye. Yeah, that looks better. Okay, so I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to put a little bit more highlight on this left-hand side. So my light gray is going to work. This is going to give me a little bit of highlight on the tip, in through here, in through here. And again, I just kind of keep elevating it until I feel like I've got the right brightness. Now I'm putting some white paint on my brush to get this little corner of the nail and the edge of the thumb a little bit more intensity. And I do it very slowly. I don't do anything too drastic, especially when doing a grayscale like this. Even though I know I want to have a lot of dimension into it, I approach it in a slow, systematic way, so I don't overdo anything, and so I can get those gradual gradients to make it look really nice and natural. I feel like I need a little more shadow at the bottom side of this thumb, so I'm picking up a tiny bit of my watered down black paint. I'm going to give myself a little bit more shadow down here on this bottom side of this finger, and just kind of work it up in through here. And then I would just kind of keep fiddling and tweaking it as much as I feel is necessary. Maybe a little bit more darkness in through here, pushing those blacks blacker and bringing the brights, the whites lighter in a gradual way, again, is what's going to make this grayscale work when we go to add the colors on it in a little bit. And then I would just keep, like I said, fiddling with it until I've got it as much dimension in it as I want. And then we are going to be using our medium brush for the next step. So you can put this small brush away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint the bottom hand and arm blue. I'm going to be using my medium brush. The colors that I'm going to use are blue and white, and I'm also going to be using some water. What we're going to in essence do is be creating what's referred to as a glaze that we can apply to this arm that will allow us to see all of the detail that we've already put on there. So a glaze is a very transparent color. And what I'm going to be doing to create it is I'm going to use my cobalt blue, a tiny bit of white just because I want my blue a little bit lighter in color, and water. So I have my cobalt blue here. I'm going to put just a teeny tiny bit, that might be too much, a teeny tiny bit of white paint in it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my water and I'm going to drop droplets of water into my paint until it's very fluid in consistency. It could almost even be on the drippy type side. You don't need a lot. You can see right now how thin it's getting. You don't need a lot of the paint. It's going to go a really far way when you have it thinned out like this, but you definitely want it to be really nice and thin. So once you have it in the consistency that you like, I do recommend that you test it out on something. So even if you test it out on the side of your canvas or something, just to make sure that you can really see through it. Once you've got it test it out and you know what you've got is what you want, then you just start painting an entire layer onto that bottom arm. So I'm using this brush because I know I can have it nice and do a nice layer of it with this particular brush. You might want to use what's referred to as a mop brush, which will allow you to get a nice thin coat of it without having too much streakiness to it. So I'm going to just kind of get that on there. Actually, I think I'm going to pick up my large brush for a second and just so I can get a nice coat in through here and avoid any areas that are too streaky. And I just kind of keep brushing it until I've got it nice and soft, so you can't really see too much of my brush marks. And again, you could use a softer brush if you want to. And then once you've got it, you know, that particular area, then you can just move right up to the top area and just do the same thing. So just kind of put that blue on there and just kind of rub it around until that you have the intensity that you want. If you want it to be more blue, you can certainly do a second layer on it. The trick though is to just keep it thin enough so you can see all of those details underneath, because you worked so hard at putting the details underneath and to get this beautiful realistic type of image on through here. So you don't want to cover it all up with a opaque kind of paint. And then once you've got this done, we are going to be using the same brush for the next step. So you can just wash it and dry it and get ready. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're gonna paint the top arm and hand yellow. I'm gonna be using my medium brush. I'm gonna do a very similar process to how I did the bottom arm, which is I'm gonna be watering down my color in order for it to be very transparent and translucent. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take my yellow paint, my medium brush, I'm gonna start adding in drops of water in order to get it nice and fluid. So again, you want it to be very transparent so you can see right through it. You can, if you make it too thin, you can always add more layers. I'd rather say be on the cautious side and make it nice and thin and add more layers if you need to, as opposed to making it too thick and covering up all of your painting that you did. And then once you've got it the right consistency, then you just start painting over your other hand. So I'm going to just start painting my yellow color over this hand in through here, and then just making sure that we can see through it. So I'm just getting it on here. And again, same thing as I said earlier with when it's a little wet, it might be a little bit more on the foggy side. That fogginess will go away as it dries and you'll be able to see all the details underneath it. But if you're feeling like it might be too much, or it might be too yellow or whatnot, just back off. You can add a little bit more water to it. You can always use water to take it off of the canvas too. If you feel like it went too solid of a color on you, you can reverse it with just a little bit of extra water on your brush. And then I'm going to go ahead and do this big area up in through here. So just putting that yellow on and just bringing it down over into this area, and then just kind of rubbing it out to wherever I want to take that color. So this is just bringing it over in through here and then I can just kind of get it to blend out into this dark area. And again, if it was too solid of a color, just add a little bit of water to your brush, add a little bit of water to the equation or liquid medium. I choose to use water when it comes to thinning out my paint like this, but you could certainly use a liquid medium that will provide you with a pretty similar effect to it. And then once you've got this done, if you want to intensify the color, you can add another layer. If you want to take any away, you can add a little water. So it's whatever works for you. We have one little step left to go, and it's going to be with our small brush. So once you've got this done, you can put this medium brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I typically sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right. I'm going to be going with my small brush. I'm going to sign this one in the bottom left with black paint. I sign mine with my initials, but you could certainly sign yours with your first name or the date or a symbol or whatever you'd like for your identifying mark to be is totally fine. It's your painting. You get to sign it however you'd like. And that is going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself a pretty powerful image, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.